Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it, Who is the Magician? It's based on a question someone asked me in the Spanish channel, and the question is, Hi Nick, one question. You always say that once you see the trick, you no longer believe the magician. However, having had so-called mystical experiences of merging with the whole, why isn't the trick revealed? I know people who seem very happy in their process, taking substances that reveal the obvious and so on. But I didn't see them finishing anything. I see them keep using that to reveal the trick again and again because in my opinion they forget, then they start taking it again. I don't know if you could clarify this a little for me or if I explain myself well. Thank you. Okay, so here's the answer that I offer in writing, and then we'll talk a bit here. When we talk about the magician and the trick, the problem is that you assume that the trick is something you, the person, see. Once you see the trick, you can no longer believe in the magician. But again, the problem is that there is an identification with a you who believes can see the trick and who believe that once you find the trick, you will no longer believe in it. But what you're believing is believing that you are that you, that person, that individual. That's where the problem lies. In other words, the trick is you, and remember, you are a thought. The magician is life, and you are life. In that sense, it is as if you are the magician who unwittingly deceived yourself. Like when you're sleeping and dreaming, you are the mind that dreams the dream all the time, but the mind deceives itself with its own projection. Once you stop believing in the world of appearances, which includes the you who thinks it's reading these words, you rest in the fact that you simply are. And this is not something that human beings can understand with the conceptual mind because it goes beyond the mind, it transcends the mind, it transcends thought. Taking hallucinogens to have some special experience is still an apparent individual who is taking the hallucinogens. However, that individual is the obstacle, which is why the fact that you are life does not become evident to you. You think you're reading these words. You think you've had mystical experiences. You think there are people who are supposedly happy taking hallucinogens, but still never end up experiencing the permanence the message points to. Do you see the common denominator? Is that you who believes has to find or see the trick. When that you disappears, there is no trick, no magician, there is pure life. Every question you ask continues to feed that you, and as long as there is identification with that you, the questions will continue to arise one after another. And any mystical experience, as I said before, that you may have, the mind uses it as evidence of something special, keeping the attention on the individual. I've had one or two of those mystical experiences too, and they have simply been experiences no different from the plate of food I just ate a minute ago, that is no different from any experience taking place in the world of appearances. However, all these experiences takes place in who I am, the magician. And once the trick, identification with the separate self, is seen through, the appearance of this separate self continues, as in the case of writing these words, but there is an awareness that I simply am. And that is something that cannot be spoken about. It is the experience that is taking place right now while it appears that there is a you reading these words. You want to understand it with your mind so that you can say that you now understand it. But ultimately, that you is the one that has to disappear. When this understanding is established, it is not that you as an individual disappears, rather it is a change of mind through which the experience of life is lived free of suffering, experiencing the peace that surpasses all understanding. That is the practical aspect of all this. Do not seek to have mystical experiences of any kind. Those who are conscious are not interested in having mystical experiences stemming from hallucinogens because they know that ultimately none of it lead them to truth. Those who are conscious know that taking hallucinogens is just another experience, perhaps with a different texture than what we're used to, but it doesn't lead to awakening. Perhaps leads to a time travel, like going to a ride in an amusement park. Except the amusement park is the mind, but what you are is in what the mind itself seems to appear in. Okay, so basically, as you can tell, the problem is the person is trying to figure out who's the magician and what is the trick, because when I said that once you see the trick, you'll no longer believe in the magician. But you see, the magician is life itself and the trick is thought. Once you see through the thought without the identification with the seeming individual, then the riddle has been solved. We're not trying to control the mind here. We're not trying to control thoughts. We're just remembering the fact that I am. And thoughts are just simply appearances that have nothing to do with who I am. I would like to read something said by Jiddu Krishnamurti, which I think is fascinating. He says, "When you sit quietly to watch the movement of your thought, what is actually taking place? Are you following a path that promises peace at its end? Or are you simply observing without motive, without a goal, without the weight of expectation? Because the moment there is a goal, the moment there is an idea of, I will get somewhere by doing this, the mind is no longer free to see itself as it is. It is chasing an image, a projection, something born out of thought itself. Just listening to the mind as it moves, like watching clouds drifting across an open sky when there is no center demanding progress, no observer judging success or failure, then something extraordinary begins to happen. The mind watches itself without interference. It sees its fears, its hopes, its memories rising and falling. And in that very scene, without choice, without direction, there is a quietness that is not manufactured. This quietness is not the product of discipline. It is not the silence of control when you push away noise to create order. It is the silence that comes when the mind stops grasping, stops becoming, stops chasing results. But this cannot happen if we turn silence itself into a method. The moment you say, I will practice silence to achieve peace, you have already disturbed the stillness with effort, with will, with desire. So perhaps the real discovery is not how to silence the mind, but how to see the whole movement of thought without resistance. How to let it flower completely without picking and choosing. In that effortless watching, the mind itself grows quiet naturally, like a wind that dies down on its own. So basically what we're pointing with these videos is the fact that you are. When I say, for example, if you don't believe any thoughts, what remains? This is not a practice, not a discipline or anything of trying to control, or no, it's just a noticing the obvious. Right now, if you don't identify with the content of the mind, if you don't believe your thoughts, or whatever thoughts, because they're not even yours, they simply seem to appear and disappear in the you, which is wholeness, which is what is, which is beyond the mind, which is not conceptual. If you don't believe any thoughts, if you simply observe, what remains? What remains is beingness. You see? And beingness simply is. But when there's an identification with the thought me, now beingness is overlooked, and now this seeming me is the one that asks all these questions, and is the one that's trying to figure out who's the magician, what is the trick. I'm not able to see the trick. There's people to take hallucinogens and they seem to be in this trip, but then they go back again to the trap, because they still identify with the sense of individual, and that individual is the one that thinks that if I take a hallucinogen, I am going to have some particular mystical experience. But the problem is the belief in the individual itself. You see? And all experiences are just that. Yes, I've had a couple of experiences that I could call them, I don't know, I don't even want to label them anything. Maybe an understanding or a comprehension, The book I Am, in which everything seems to appear and disappear. Yeah, one day I woke up in the morning and yes, I still the me. I felt that there is a me, but somehow there's a mind shift in which this comprehension of the fact that I am is the wholeness, in which the I, this person that seems to have waken up from the bed, seemed to appear and disappear and everything else. But that was just an experience that meant absolutely nothing. It gave me a taste of a possibility of a mind when it's beyond its limits for a moment, but that's about it. You see? So in the end, any experience, how mystical may seem, if you can tell me about it, that means that it's just a passing cloud, an experience, and the problem is that the seeming individual, now it tries to chase that experience again, and that may seem the case with people who take hallucinogens. I mean, they just want to chase that particular high, which again, is not right or wrong. We're not here judging that, but what we're pointing to is that all that keep feeding the belief in the individual who suggests that it's going to eventually achieve a particular goal. And that's why these beautiful words by Krishnamurti points to. The moment you begin to try to become silent in order to experience peace, you have disturbed the silence itself, because now you have a particular outcome you're looking for. But the problem is that that particular outcome comes from the belief in a self that now he's trying to achieve a particular outcome. What we're pointing to here is beyond the idea of the separate individual. You are right now. I'm not asking you to do this in order for you to experience something in the future. I'm pointing to what is right now. Right this moment, you are. And like Krishnamurti says, now when you rest in this, you can actually see the memories and the thoughts, and you can see you can see that. And once you can see the trick, which the trick is thoughts. See? We're reacting to thoughts. These are the tricks. But when you see through the thought, you see that you simply are, again, not you personally, but once again, limitation of language. Then once you see the thoughts are the one playing this role and trying to make believe that I am this, and once you see through that, you see, then, and you don't believe in them anymore, that's it. You see? So right now you believe you're a person who is listening to this video, and you may want to get something out of this. But that seeming individual is still a thought in all that there is, and it's still the obstacle. So the invitation here is that if you don't believe any thoughts, you see, not even the thought that you are trying to not believe any thoughts, you know, I'm just pointing to what is. If there's no belief in any thoughts, what remains? And what remains, I always say, it is not an answer. Don't give me an answer. Don't tell me peace, tranquility, or anything, because if you do, you went back again to the mind. You went back again to thoughts. I am pointing to what is. This is it. But again, the minds try to see it as something that the mind is trying to understand. It's not you who sees that this is it. This is just it, in spite of you or not. You see? So hopefully with a lot of repetition, listening to the message over and over again, it's like, of course. You see, that's it. So this is where all this is pointing to the fact that you are. You cannot not be. You are being right now. But not what the thought suggests that you're being. The thought says, I am being an individual. I am being someone who's practicing something. I am being, no. You are being because you are, that's it. Then life unfolds. Thoughts are seen. Sensations may seem to appear, but they all rise and they fall right back down again on its own. When you're not giving it attention, when you're not trying to feed them. You see? That's why there's nothing to do. I'm not trying to, I'm not suggesting to you, try to do this in order to get that. No, I'm just pointing to what is right now. Right this moment, if you don't believe any thoughts, they will be there. That's fine. That's what they do. I mean, the sky has nothing against the clouds. Let them be. But you are. Right now, if there's no believing in any thoughts, what remains? What remains is what is, what have always been and what it will always be. Ever presence, again, not even call it anything. Just pure beingness, pure existence, that's it. And now see how life unfolds. You see? And remember, these videos are paradoxical, because in the end, life is leaving you, or it seems to be leaving you, therefore you will end up doing whatever life wants you to do. So even if I say don't believe the thoughts, you will not believe the thoughts because I say so. And interestingly enough, that which supposedly projects all of this now uses this instrument to tell that other seeming instrument to not believe their thoughts. It's like life telling itself, it don't believe what you're believing, what you're thinking, what you're projecting. So in that case, you know, celebrate the fact that life is leading you to the remembrance of who you are, which is beyond words. Call it love. Call it beingness, essence, absolute. Doesn't matter. Forget about the words. Simply be, because you are being anyway. Okay, well, this is inspiration that came through. I hope it served. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.